Hi, folks. This is Dr. Kat Schreier, host of the Water Show, founder of the WaterCitizen Media Foundation, and I'm here today at the National Conversation on Integrated Water Information, hosted by NOAA and several other agencies and U.S. Water Partnership. And one of our speakers from this morning is Angela Gladwell, Deputy Assistant Administrator, Risk Management Directorate. You got to get these titles right. That's what cards are for. And by the way, just so they don't think that you're like falling off the screen, why don't you come and get nice and cozy?
Hello.
Yeah, you know, if you have something to say about water, come sit by me.
All right, very good.
So let's get us framed right. We got our little makeshift pillows here to keep us propped up. And get rid of our headspace. And see, these are all the little new media tricks that you learn when we do this sort of stuff. So, this morning you were part of the conversation. I left my little cheat sheet downstairs. So you were part of the conversation along with the Corps of Engineers, Howard Crook, and then who may be running by here, and if he does, we'll grab him. And you're supposed to be there also with the mayor of Toledo, who had actually, since they were there, I want to tell the public a quick summary of what happened in Toledo. Just your perspective of what happened in Toledo.
Oh, I actually don't have a lot of information on Toledo.
other than, basically what happened, what was in the news? So, couldn't answer.
No,
okay, well,
I'm sorry.
Well, go look it up online. Google it. Yeah. So Toledo had some bad stuff happen to them with respect to water. Now, FEMA is the Federal Environmental Management Agency, which so if there is a disaster, who are you going to call, right?
That's right.
Although actually, that's kind of the perception is that when there's a disaster, and by the way, that's where the public is, that little dot there.
Okay.
That's our water citizens out there. Is that when there's a disaster, the government is going to step in and pay for it,
Right.
but that is not the case.
No, that's not the case, and that's not really the goal of FEMA. Our goal is, and we say we're a catalyst for a safer nation, but we're doing that and working with a lot of different partners to be able to give them the tools and the information that they need to be able to manage their risks so that when a disaster occurs, they have the ability to respond to a disaster and they can handle it on its own, because it's really only when the local and then the state capabilities can't be met after a disaster that FEMA comes in. One of the things that we talked about this morning was the role of the flood insurance specifically as a mitigation tool for flood risk, because there's a perception out there that FEMA will come after a disaster if you're flooded and will be able to give you what you need as an individual to recover. But really,
So the signs during Katrina, people sitting on top of a house saying, where's FEMA? Where's
That's
the
right.
Come rescue us.
And certainly we coordinate assistance across a lot of various partners, but really there's very little that we're providing in individual assistance. And so flood insurance and getting flood insurance is one of the most powerful tools that you can have as you prepare for a disaster and then try to recover from a disaster as well.
Now, when we look at disasters, and there's certain things that we can expect will happen. If you're in California, you're going to have earthquakes. If you're in the Gulf, you're going to have hurricanes,
Right.
I grew up in New Jersey. We would occasionally have either a tropical storm or an actual hurricane or a superstorm. I wasn't there for Superstorm Sandy, but I do remember prior, usually it had been downgraded to a tropical storm. It usually meant a day off of school.
Yes.
Wasn't quite the disaster you'd find with a full-blown hurricane in, say, Florida. But there's a lot of people who make decisions related to those disasters and just how we educate ourselves as water citizens, as people who are aware of water-related disasters. So there is FEMA, there is the insurance agencies, when things go wrong, whether they pay for stuff or not. But there's things like zoning and policymakers and decisions. There's businesses where they build or don't build. There's been a lot of conversation around race and water and who is stuck in the floodplain.
That's right.
And, not just race, but low income. The less desirable areas. in the
A lot of
floodplains that
vulnerable
have
populations.
exactly.
Yes.
And even here in DC, it's been something that folks like Jerry Galloway have tried to raise the awareness about the fact that our first of all, our biggest decision makers in cases of emergencies and our biggest transportation hubs, Reagan Airport and Union Station, are in low-lying areas. We have a hurricane. What happens here in Washington, D.C.?
Absolutely, and what that's saying, and we know that the actual flooding conditions are changing, right, and that they're evolving, and so there's the issue of what happens today if there's an event, and how do we respond, and how do we have the capabilities to be able to deal with it. But then there's also that future look. How are we taking the information that what's going to happen in the future, not just what's happened in the past, which is important, as we learned in another panel today, not just what's happened in the past, but what the full life cycle of your investment. If you're building a school or an airport or whatever, and you've got a life cycle of 50 or 100 years, it's important that we're thinking about how we can use the data to be able to understand what that's going to be like, and to inform our choices now.
Now, one term that gets thrown around a lot in these water conversations, and it was brought up again this morning, the stationarity, and it was a big deal, this death of stationarity when Bob published the article from USGS, and what the ramifications are of that for everyday citizens. So when you talk about planning for the future, it used to be that we plan for the future strictly based on what happened in the past.
Yes.
And
that's not good enough anymore.
So that's basically what stationarity means, is that we assume that the past is a prediction of the future. Why is that not true?
Because we know that flooding conditions are going to change. It's also going to impact drought. It's also going to impact wildfire. And so one of the most common things that we hear, because one of the things we do at FEMA is we map floodplains. And as we issue new floodplain maps, one of the common things that we hear if someone has been newly mapped into a flood zone is, I've never flooded before, and what we're finding is that is shifting. That's changing. There's more and increased flooding, and in combination with things like new development that's occurring and populations moving into the coasts and increasing there, that's then impacting. So more people are flooding, and they need to think about what that's going to look like and how that's going to change for the future.
And I think it's an important point that it's not just climate that is changing how much flooding we have.
That's right. It's a combination of factors, and we need to look at all of these trends and all of these things that are happening in a community and how that's going to impact that risk in the future.
So things like how much paved infrastructure we have,
that's right.
how many trees we have. That's been a big issue here in DC. Casey Trees trying to get, that we got rid of so much of the tree cover of what used to be here.
Right.
That we put in so much more pavement. And so, people will see these green infrastructure projects. And again, the engineers and the water experts say, oh my God, we've got green infrastructure. Why is green infrastructure? Why is having, these greenways in the middle of the street and green roofs and everything else, why is that important for flooding?
Well, it helps absorb the water flow. And so what we're finding is that although in cases what we're mapping is the 1% annual chance, it's typically not going to have a significant impact on the 1% annual chance, but it has a very significant impact. Wetlands, oyster reefs, other eelgrass, other types of green approaches to mitigation can have very significant impacts on your 25 or 50 year events.
Yeah. So basically, you'll have less floods when you have, when the water can kind of hit the ground and sort of seep in. You have the permeable pavements and
absolutely
and everything else. We did a show not too long ago out in Los Angeles. In fact, it was the South Central, Crips and Bloods and all that. The folks in the city of Los Angeles were very excited about this. You have to watch this show. That they were working with the community to take these really messed up alleyways. They had this huge network of alleys in that part of town. And replacing it with permeable pavement, and not just permeable pavement, but really nice looking alleys that can be used for block parties and for kids to walk to school. And taking an old parking lot from an old rail depot or something like that, storage area, and turning into this massive treatment wetlands with a fountain for aeration and park benches and right across from the school, and totally revitalize the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So how much does FEMA work with those kinds of community-based projects that integrate emergency preparedness, mitigation, flood mitigation kind of stuff?
We do. And right now we do it amongst our various programs. And one of the things I'm really interested in, how can we bring our programs together in a way that we're really bringing the right set of tools and technical expertise and other things to bear to help understand what communities' objectives are. What are they trying to achieve? And then figuring out how we can help them and add risk reduction as part of that equation. And I think your example was a really good example of that.
Nice. Well, and a lot of that comes down to communication, and not just as one of the points that I got up today and talked a little bit about this idea of who are we communicating with, and not just this mass communication. But there's that 20% of people, the long tail of people who have some kind of interest in water in their community and risk management in their community, not just the people working for a flood agency or
absolutely. And there's this right now, we're in data and information overload. We talk about how we need to use data to make better decisions, which is really important. But at the same time, we have to be able to translate that wealth of data and information to the individual, to the community level, to actually understand what it is that really matters. What's the impact of what it is that we're bringing to the table, to be able to say, this is how this can affect you economically. This is what this might look like in a few years. Let's visualize this. And then figure out also how we start messaging that in a way that will resonate with folks. And you can take it and be able to say, you know what, I've learned something. I know what I can do now to better protect myself in the future.
Absolutely. Well, and of course, a lot of that is the role of the media and new media, and folks who have that expertise to help both translate that and provide platforms and opportunities for people to watch what's going on. And if you would like to watch more of what's going on, I know that they are recording downstairs. They're going to do this nicely packaged thing and put it up on YouTube. But if you want to see it now and in the moment, and interviews you're going to have all day with the speakers and find out who those speakers are, please do check thewatershow.org and go to the button right here below the screen. I'm going to post this up in our playlist as soon as we're done. And that's going to have the full information on the program, including the agenda, so you'll be able to see who else is coming up. And we will get as many of those speakers as possible. Thank you very much for stopping. I know you're on your way to a meeting. By the way, while you have this platform here, is there anything in particular going on with your agency? Any particular website? Any particular something that would be accessible and interesting to the WaterCitizen that you're very proud of and would like to say is available at www.wow.
Yeah, FEMA.gov. Please take it and visit it. It's a really good resource for personal preparedness as well. So there's a lot of really great information and tools that are there. So I would say please peruse and see what you can find of use there.
Were you talking about, or was it Kathleen Sullivan talking about? No, it's Kathleen Sullivan talking about going from 4,000 points of data of, here's a point of data here 20 miles up, and here's a point of data 10 miles downstream, to what number are they going to? Million? Over a million?
It's very large.
Like a couple of million. So you could actually find out what the prediction is of the water level rise where you live
in
not
real time.
Not just triangulate from different points.
It's amazing, our ability now with this national water model to really understand and see water in real time and what's happening and where it's going to go and what it's going to impact is huge.
And if your basement's going to flood.
And if your basement's going to flood.
That's when your bathtub is going to overflow. They're going to tell you what that.
That's right. When you need to get out, right? well, let's start small and work our way up. But yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Appreciate your
Nice
time,
talking to you.
and thank you for watching us. And keep joining us throughout the week for more interviews with folks here at the National Conversation on integrated water information for the 21st century. We'll see you on the Water Show.